The afternoon sun blazed down on the busy shopping district as 17-year-old Maya sat cross-legged on the cracked pavement. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained, her hair tangled and dusty from sleeping in the park. Before her sat an old keyboard, its white keys yellowed with age and several black keys missing entirely. A small cardboard sign leaned against it with shaky handwriting that read, "Music for food. God bless." The crowd rushed past her without a second glance. Businessmen in expensive suits hurried by, their phones pressed to their ears. Women with designer handbags crossed the street to avoid walking near her. Teenagers laughed and pointed but never stopped. Maya had grown used to being invisible. 3 months ago, she had a home, a family, and dreams of becoming a concert pianist. Now she had nothing but this broken keyboard and the clothes on her back. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she prepared to play. The instrument had been a gift from a kind stranger at the shelter, who noticed her humming classical melodies while washing dishes. It didn't work properly anymore. Several keys stuck and others made no sound at all, but it was all she had. Maya closed her eyes and began to play a simple melody, working around the broken keys with practiced skill. A few people dropped coins into her cup without stopping. Most just walked faster as if poverty might be contagious. Maya kept playing, losing herself in the music. It was the only time she felt human anymore. The only time she forgot about her empty stomach and the fear of another night on the streets. Her mother had taught her to play when she was 5 years old, back when life was normal and beautiful. After her mother died from cancer 2 years ago, everything fell apart. Her father couldn't handle the grief and turned to alcohol. The bills piled up, the bank took their house, and her father disappeared one day, leaving Maya alone at 15. She bounced between foster homes, each one worse than the last, until she finally ran away. The streets were dangerous, but at least they were honest about it. A group of college students approached, laughing loudly about their weekend plans. One of them, a girl with perfectly styled hair and expensive sneakers, noticed Maya and nudged her friends. "Oh my God, look at this," she said loudly, her voice dripping with mockery. "Is she seriously trying to play music on that piece of junk?" Her friends gathered around and Maya felt her cheeks burn with shame. She stopped playing and looked down at her hands. "Keep going," one of the boys said with a cruel laugh. "We want to hear what homelessness sounds like." The group erupted in laughter and several people nearby turned to watch the spectacle. Maya's hands trembled as she placed them back on the keys. She needed the money. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, and the shelter would only take her in if she could pay $5 for a bed. Her pride wanted her to stand up and walk away, but her survival instinct was stronger. She began to play again, a soft melody that her mother used to sing to her at bedtime. "That's terrible," the girl said, pulling out her phone. "I'm totally recording this for my story. My followers will die." She held up her phone, making sure to capture Maya's dirty clothes and tangled hair. Her friends joined in, their phones pointed at Maya like weapons. "Smile for the camera, homeless girl," another one said, and they all laughed again. Maya felt tears building behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. She kept playing, her fingers moving mechanically over the keys while her heart broke inside her chest. This wasn't the first time she had been mocked, and it wouldn't be the last. Being homeless meant being treated as less than human, an object of pity or ridicule, but never respect. The crowd around her grew larger, drawn by the commotion. Some people looked uncomfortable, but no one intervened. A few recorded videos on their phones, adding to Maya's humiliation. The college students continued their commentary, making jokes about her appearance and her playing. One of them threw a penny at her cup and it bounced off, rolling across the pavement. "There's your payment," he said. "Buy yourself a shower." Maya's vision blurred with unshed tears, but her hands never stopped moving. The melody continued, soft and sad, a reflection of her shattered life. She thought about her mother, about the grand piano they used to have in their living room, about the recitals and competitions and the scholarship to music school that she had been offered before everything fell apart. That girl seemed like someone else now, someone from a dream she once had. The mocking continued for several more minutes before the group finally got bored and moved on, still laughing and reviewing their videos. The crowd dispersed and Maya was alone again with her broken keyboard and her broken dreams. She wiped her eyes with the back of her dirty hand and counted the coins in her cup. $2.37. Not enough for the shelter. Another night in the park. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the street, Maya packed up her keyboard. Her fingers ached from playing and her stomach cramped with hunger. She stood up slowly, her legs stiff from sitting all day, and looked around at the city that had once been her home. Somewhere in this concrete jungle was the girl she used to be, the one with dreams and talent and a future. But that girl seemed further away with each passing day, lost in a world that had no place for the poor and forgotten. The next morning arrived with a cold rain that soaked through Maya's thin jacket within minutes. She had spent the night huddled under a bridge, sharing space with two other homeless people who barely acknowledged her existence. Her body ached from sleeping on concrete, and her keyboard had gotten wet despite her efforts to protect it. When she tried to play, half the keys no longer worked at all. Maya walked through the rain toward the public library, one of the few places where homeless people were allowed inside without being immediately asked to leave. She spent the morning in the bathroom, trying to clean herself up as best she could with paper towels and hand soap. The mirror showed her a stranger with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks. She barely recognized herself anymore. By afternoon, the rain had stopped, and Maya returned to her usual spot on the shopping district street. She set up her keyboard and her cardboard sign, trying to ignore the stares from passers-by. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since the day before yesterday when someone had given her half a sandwich. The hunger was becoming harder to ignore, making her feel weak and dizzy. She began to play, her fingers working around the keys that no longer functioned. The melody was simple and broken, just like her instrument, but it was all she could offer. People walked by without stopping, their faces turned away from her misery. A businessman dropped a quarter in her cup without breaking his stride. A mother pulled her child closer and hurried past as if Maya might contaminate her precious baby. An elderly woman stopped and listened for a moment, her head tilted to the side. "You have musical training," she said, her voice gentle. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The woman reached into her purse and pulled out a $5 bill. "There's a community center 3 blocks east," she said, placing the money in Maya's cup. "They have a piano in the main hall. Nobody uses it much. The security guard is my nephew. Tell him Rose sent you." Before Maya could thank her, the woman was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Maya stared at the $5 bill, the first kindness she had received in days. She picked it up with trembling fingers and pressed it to her chest. $5 meant food. It meant a bed at the shelter. It meant survival for another day. But the woman's words echoed in her mind. A real piano. An actual working piano. Maya made a decision that surprised herself. She packed up her keyboard and walked toward the community center, her stomach protesting with every step. The building was old but well maintained, with large windows and flower boxes that someone actually watered. She pushed through the heavy wooden doors and found herself in a lobby with worn but clean floors. A security guard sat at a desk, reading a newspaper. He looked up as Maya approached, and she saw his expression change from neutral to suspicious. She knew what she must look like, a dirty homeless girl tracking water across his clean floors. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, "but Rose sent me. She said I could use the piano." The guard's face softened immediately. "You're the girl from the street," he said, standing up. "Aunt Rose called me. Said you had real talent hidden under hard times." He led her down a hallway to a large room with basketball hoops folded against the walls. In the corner sat an upright piano, old and slightly out of tune but beautiful to Maya's eyes. "It's all yours," the guard said. "We close at 8, so you've got a few hours. There's a bathroom down the hall if you need it, and a water fountain." He paused at the door. "My name's Marcus, by the way. If anyone gives you trouble, you let me know." Then he left her alone with the piano. Maya approached it slowly, almost afraid to touch it. Her hands were dirty, and she felt ashamed to put them on the clean keys. She went to the bathroom and scrubbed her hands until they were red and raw, but finally clean. When she returned to the piano, she sat down on the bench and took a deep breath. The moment her fingers touched the keys, something inside her broke open. All the pain and fear and loneliness of the past 3 months came pouring out through her hands. She played a Chopin nocturne that her mother had loved, her fingers remembering every note despite the months away from a real piano. The music filled the empty room, echoing off the walls and high ceiling. She played for hours, moving from Chopin to Beethoven to Mozart, her fingers flying across the keys with a skill that years of training had burned into her muscle memory. She played the pieces she had performed at competitions, the ones that had won her scholarships and praise from teachers. She played until her hands cramped and her back ached from sitting. When she finally stopped, she realized she was crying. Real tears streamed down her face, washing away some of the dirt and grime. She had forgotten what it felt like to truly play, to lose herself completely in the music. On the street with her broken keyboard, she had only been surviving. Here she was alive again. Marcus appeared in the doorway and Maya was startled to see tears in his eyes too. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "Really beautiful. Aunt Rose was right about you." He checked his watch. "It's almost closing time, but you can come back tomorrow if you want. Same time." Maya thanked him profusely, her voice hoarse from disuse and emotion. She gathered her things and stepped back out into the evening air. The $5 was still in her pocket, and she used it to buy a sandwich and a bottle of water from a corner store. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, and for the first time in months, she felt something other than despair. That night at the shelter, lying on a thin mattress surrounded by strangers, Maya allowed herself to hope. Maybe she wasn't completely lost. Maybe the girl who loved music and dreamed of concert halls wasn't gone forever. Maybe, just maybe, she could find her way back to herself one note at a time. The piano had reminded her of who she used to be, and more importantly, who she still could be. For the next 2 weeks, Maya fell into a routine. She would spend her mornings on the street with her broken keyboard, earning just enough money for food and an occasional night at the shelter. Every afternoon, she would go to the community center where Marcus would let her in with a nod and a smile. The piano became her sanctuary, the one place where she could forget about being homeless and just be a musician. Her playing improved with each session. The rust from months without practice slowly fell away, and her fingers regained their speed and precision. She worked through the pieces she remembered from her lessons, pushing herself harder each day. Sometimes other people would wander into the room and stop to listen, but Maya barely noticed them. When she played, the rest of the world disappeared. One afternoon, a man in his 50s with silver hair and an expensive coat entered the room while Maya was playing a particularly difficult Rachmaninoff piece. She was so absorbed in the music that she didn't hear him come in. When she finished, he applauded softly and Maya jumped, startled by the sound. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, standing up. "Am I not supposed to be here? Marcus said I could use the piano, but if I'm breaking rules—" "Sit down," the man said, his voice kind but commanding. "Please continue playing." He settled into a folding chair against the wall, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Maya nervous. But something in his expression wasn't judgment or pity. It was interest, maybe even respect. Maya sat back down and began another piece, a Bach prelude that required perfect precision. Her hands shook slightly under his scrutiny, but as the music took over, she forgot about him again. She played 3 more pieces before her fingers grew too tired to continue. The man stood and approached the piano. "My name is Robert Chen," he said, extending his hand. "I'm a music professor at the State University, and I've been teaching piano for 30 years. That was extraordinary, playing for someone so young." He paused, taking in her appearance with kind eyes. "Marcus told me about you. He said there was a homeless girl with remarkable talent using our piano." Maya felt her face burn with shame. "I'm sorry. I know I don't look like much. I just needed somewhere to practice," and Rose said. "You misunderstand," Robert interrupted gently. "I'm not here to scold you. I'm here to offer you an opportunity." He pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to her. "The university is hosting a community talent showcase next month. It's open to anyone, regardless of background or circumstances. I'd like you to perform." Maya stared at the card, unable to process his words. "But I'm homeless," she whispered. "I don't have proper clothes or sheet music or anything. People will laugh at me just like they do on the street." Robert sat down on the bench beside her. "Let me tell you something about music," he said. "When you play like you just did, nobody cares what you're wearing or where you sleep at night. They only care about the sound you create and the emotion you convey. You have a gift that most of my students would kill for. Don't let your circumstances rob you of that." He reached into his bag and pulled out several books of sheet music. "These are yours to keep. Practice whatever you'd like to perform. The showcase is in 4 weeks on a Saturday evening at 7. The auditorium holds 300 people and it's usually full. Can you handle that?" Maya's heart pounded in her chest. 4 weeks, 300 people. A real performance on a real stage. It was everything she had dreamed about before her life fell apart. and everything that terrified her now. What if she failed? What if people mocked her? What if her homelessness overshadowed her music? But another part of her, the part that still believed in the power of music, whispered that this might be her only chance. She looked at Robert's encouraging face and Marcus standing in the doorway with a proud smile, and she found herself nodding. "I'll do it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for believing in me." Over the next 4 weeks, Maya practiced like never before. She chose a program of 3 pieces, a Mozart sonata, a Chopin etude, and a Debussy prelude. Each one showcased different aspects of her technique and musicality. Robert came to listen several times a week, offering suggestions and encouragement. Marcus brought her sandwiches and made sure nobody disturbed her practice time. The college students who had mocked her continued to see her on the street with her broken keyboard, but Maya no longer cared about their laughter. She had a secret now, a purpose that went beyond just surviving. Every insult they threw at her became fuel for her determination. She would show them, she would show everyone what a homeless girl with a broken keyboard could really do. Rose, the elderly woman who had started everything, came by the community center one afternoon with a dress in a garment bag. "It was my daughter's," she said, pressing it into Maya's hands. "She's a lawyer now in another city and she doesn't need it anymore. It should fit you, maybe with a few alterations. You can't perform in those torn jeans." Maya unzipped the bag to find a simple but elegant black dress, the kind real pianists wore on stage. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged Rose tightly. "I don't know how to thank you," she sobbed. "All of you have been so kind. Just play beautifully," Rose said, patting her back. "That's all the thanks we need." As the day of the showcase approached, Maya's nervousness grew. She practiced until her fingers were sore and her back ached. She went over every note, every dynamic, every phrase until they were perfect. At night, lying awake in the shelter or under the bridge when she couldn't afford a bed, she played the pieces in her mind, her fingers moving against invisible keys. The morning of the performance, Maya woke up with her stomach in knots. She spent the day trying to stay calm, playing through her pieces one last time at the community center. Robert came by with a bag containing shampoo, soap, and a towel. "The university has shower facilities for visiting performers," he said. "Marcus will drive you there this evening. You'll have time to clean up and get ready properly." That evening, standing in the shower with hot water running over her for the first time in weeks, Maya cried. She washed away months of dirt and shame, letting it all swirl down the drain. When she looked in the mirror afterward, she saw glimpses of the girl she used to be. Rose's dress fit almost perfectly, and with her hair clean and brushed, Maya almost looked like a real pianist. Marcus drove her to the university auditorium, talking the whole way about how proud his aunt was and how excited everyone was to hear her play, but Maya could barely hear him over the pounding of her own heart. In a few hours, she would step onto a real stage in front of hundreds of people. Either her dreams would come back to life or they would die forever. The auditorium was already filling with people when Maya arrived backstage. She could hear the murmur of voices and occasional laughter filtering through the heavy curtains. Robert met her at the stage door, his face lighting up when he saw her. "You look wonderful," he said warmly. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Maya admitted, her hands shaking. "What if I forget the notes? What if my hands freeze up? What if people recognize me from the street and start laughing?" Robert placed his hands on her shoulders and looked directly into her eyes. "Listen to me carefully. When you sit down at that piano, nothing else matters. Not where you've slept, not what you've been through, not what anyone thinks. The only thing that matters is the music. You've practiced for this. You're ready. Trust yourself." Maya nodded, trying to absorb his confidence. She peeked through the curtain at the grand piano sitting center stage, illuminated by a single spotlight. It was beautiful. A concert grand that probably cost more than her entire life before homelessness. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. The showcase began with several other performers. A young violinist played a cheerful folk tune. A guitar trio performed contemporary pieces. A soprano sang an aria that brought applause from the audience. Maya watched from the wings, her nervousness building with each act. She was scheduled to perform last, and with each passing minute, her stomach tightened further. Finally, Robert walked onto the stage to introduce her. Maya listened to his words from behind the curtain, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst. "Our final performer tonight is someone very special," Robert said to the audience. "She's overcome tremendous challenges to be here tonight. and her dedication to music is truly inspirational. Please welcome Maya Johnson. The applause was polite but scattered as Maya walked onto the stage. She could feel the audience's eyes on her, assessing, judging. Some people whispered to their neighbors. She caught sight of a few faces in the front rows, their expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. They didn't know what to expect from this unknown girl. Maya sat down at the piano bench and adjusted it to the right height. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the keys. The piano was perfectly tuned, the keys smooth and responsive under her fingers. It was the finest instrument she had ever played. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and let everything else fall away. The first notes of Mozart's piano sonata filled the auditorium. Maya's fingers moved with confidence and precision, executing the rapid passages with clarity and grace. The nervous energy that had been consuming her transformed into pure focus. Every note was exactly where it should be, every phrase perfectly shaped. The piano sang under her hands. In the audience, the whispering stopped. People sat up straighter in their seats. The skeptical expressions began to change to surprise, then to genuine interest. Even those who had come only to support other performers found themselves drawn into Maya's playing. There was something raw and honest in her interpretation, an emotional depth that went beyond technical skill. Maya moved seamlessly into the second movement, a slow and tender melody that required delicate touch and careful balance. She played it with a maturity that belied her years, each note floating through the air like a whispered secret. Some people in the audience closed their eyes to better absorb the music. Others leaned forward, not wanting to miss a single moment. As the Mozart concluded, there was a brief moment of silence before the applause erupted. It was enthusiastic and genuine, not the polite clapping that had greeted her entrance. Maya opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented. She had been so lost in the music that she had forgotten where she was. The audience's response brought her back to reality with a jolt of surprise. She paused only briefly before launching into Chopin's Etude, a technically demanding piece that had once been her favorite competition showpiece. Her hands flew across the keys with dazzling speed, executing the difficult passages that had made other pianists struggle. The notes cascaded like water, each one perfectly articulated despite the breakneck tempo. This was where Maya truly shined. Years of training and natural talent combined with the emotion of everything she had been through. Every frustration, every moment of despair, every time she had been mocked or ignored poured through her fingers into the music. The Chopin became not just a display of technical prowess, but a statement of survival, of refusing to give up despite impossible odds. People in the audience began to realize they were witnessing something special. Cell phones appeared as people started recording, but not to mock this time. They wanted to capture this performance, this moment. Robert stood in the wings with tears streaming down his face. Marcus had snuck in through a side door and stood against the wall, barely breathing. The Chopin ended with a flourish, and this time the applause was thunderous. People stood up, first a few, then more, until half the auditorium was on their feet. Maya's eyes widened in shock. She had never received a standing ovation before, not even at her best competitions. Her hands shook as she positioned them for the final piece. Debussy's Clair de Lune began softly, almost imperceptibly. Maya played it with incredible tenderness, each note floating into the next like moonlight on water. This was the piece her mother had played at her own recitals, the piece that Maya associated with love and safety and home. Playing it now, homeless and alone, brought all those memories flooding back. Tears began to fall down Maya's cheeks as she played, but her hands never faltered. The emotion in the music was palpable. People in the audience found themselves crying too, moved by something they couldn't quite name. The music spoke of loss and longing, of beauty found in darkness, of hope persisting against all reason. The final notes faded into silence, and for a long moment, nobody moved. The auditorium was completely still, as if everyone was afraid to break the spell. Then the applause exploded like thunder. Everyone was on their feet now, clapping and cheering. Some people were openly crying. Others simply stood in stunned appreciation of what they had just witnessed. Maya stood up from the piano bench on shaking legs. She bowed awkwardly, unused to such response. The applause continued, growing louder. Robert rushed onto the stage and embraced her, not caring about proper protocol. Marcus was there too, and Rose had somehow appeared with a bouquet of flowers. The three of them stood with Maya, sharing her moment of triumph. As the curtain finally fell, Maya collapsed into a chair backstage, overwhelmed by emotion. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and she couldn't catch her breath. Everything she had been holding inside for months came pouring out. Robert knelt beside her, letting her cry on his shoulder while Marcus and Rose stood guard, giving her space to process. "You were magnificent," Robert said when Maya's tears finally subsided. "Truly magnificent. That was one of the finest performances I've seen in years, professional or otherwise." He pulled out his phone and showed her screen. "Look at this. People are already posting about you online. The hashtag homeless pianist is trending locally." Maya looked at the phone in confusion. She saw videos of her performance, hundreds of them, being shared and commented on. But these weren't mocking posts like the college students had made. These were messages of awe and admiration. "Who is this girl?" One comment read. "Where has she been hiding?" said another. "This is what raw talent looks like," wrote someone else. The morning after the showcase, Maya woke up in the shelter to find her performance had gone viral. Robert called her at the community center where she had started spending most of her time. "You need to see this," he said excitedly. "The local news wants to interview you. The State Philharmonic shared your video. A talent agent from New York has been trying to reach you." Maya felt dizzy with the sudden attention. Just yesterday she was invisible, someone people crossed the street to avoid. Now her phone, a cheap prepaid one that barely worked, was buzzing constantly with notifications. The videos of her performance had been viewed millions of times. Comments poured in from around the world, but not all the attention was positive. That afternoon, as Maya sat in her usual spot on the street with her broken keyboard, a news van pulled up. A reporter and cameraman approached her, and suddenly a crowd gathered. "Is it true you're the pianist from last night?" the reporter asked, shoving a microphone in her face. "Can you tell us about living on the streets?" Maya felt exposed and vulnerable. This wasn't how she wanted people to know her story. She tried to decline the interview, but the reporter persisted, asking invasive questions about her homelessness, her family, her struggles. The crowd pressed closer, some taking photos, others recording video. Maya grabbed her keyboard and fled, pushing through the mass of people. She ran until her lungs burned, finally stopping in an alley several blocks away. She slid down against a wall and hugged her keyboard to her chest, overwhelmed by the sudden invasion of her privacy. The performance was supposed to be about the music, not about her being homeless. She didn't want to be a viral sensation or a sob story. She just wanted to play piano. Marcus found her an hour later, guided by Robert, who had seen the news footage. "Come on," Marcus said gently, helping her up. "We need to get you somewhere safe." He drove her to his apartment, a modest place but clean and warm. His wife Maria welcomed Maya with open arms and a hot meal. "You'll stay here tonight," Maria insisted. No arguments. That evening, as Maya sat at their dinner table eating real home-cooked food for the first time in months, she watched the news coverage of her story. It was strange seeing herself on television, but stranger still was hearing people debate about her. Some praised her talent and resilience. Others questioned why someone so gifted was homeless in the first place. A few cruel comments blamed her for her circumstances. The segment that made Maya's blood run cold featured the college students who had mocked her weeks earlier. They had been tracked down by a persistent reporter and were now trying to defend themselves on camera. "We didn't know she was really talented," one girl said, looking uncomfortable. "She just seemed like another beggar." "How were we supposed to know?" The internet had not been kind to them. Their names and social media profiles had been shared widely, and they were receiving massive backlash for their cruelty. Maya felt a strange mix of vindication and discomfort watching them squirm. She hadn't wanted revenge, but seeing them face consequences for their actions was satisfying in a way she hadn't expected. Robert arrived at Marcus's apartment with news. "I've been contacted by the dean of the music department," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. "They want to offer you a full scholarship to the university. Full tuition, room and board, everything. You'd start in the fall semester if you want it." Maya stared at him in disbelief. A scholarship to a real university. It was more than she had dared to hope for even before she became homeless. "But I don't have a high school diploma," she said quietly. "I dropped out when I ran away from foster care." "They're willing to work with you on that," Robert explained. "You can take equivalency exams and complete any missing requirements during the summer. The dean saw your performance and read about your background. She believes in giving talented students a second chance regardless of their circumstances. Over the next few days, more opportunities emerged. A local music store offered to donate a keyboard to Maya, a real one that actually worked. A piano teacher offered free lessons to help her prepare for university. Several families reached out offering temporary housing. The same community that had ignored her for months was now falling over itself to help. But the most unexpected call came from a woman named Jennifer who worked in social services. "I've been following your story," she said when Maya met her at a coffee shop. "I think I might have information about your father, if you're interested in finding him." Maya's hands tightened around her cup of hot chocolate, a luxury Marcus had insisted on buying her. She hadn't thought about her father in months, had trained herself not to care where he had gone or whether he was alive. "Why would I want to find him?" she asked, her voice hard. "He abandoned me." Jennifer's expression was sympathetic but determined. "He checked himself into a rehabilitation center 6 months ago," she said gently. "He's been sober for 5 months now. When he saw your performance on the news, he contacted us asking how to reach you. He wants to apologize and explain why he left." Maya felt anger rising in her chest. 5 months sober. That was good for him, she supposed, but what about the year she had spent alone? What about the nights she went hungry or slept in dangerous places? What about the fear and loneliness that had become her constant companions? "I don't know if I can forgive him," she said honestly. "You don't have to," Jennifer replied. "But he wants you to know that he's found housing through a program for recovering addicts. He has a job now, nothing fancy, but it's steady. He's trying to rebuild his life, and he wants you to be part of it if you're willing. At least think about it." That night, lying in the comfortable guest bed at Marcus and Maria's apartment, Maya thought about her father. She remembered the man he had been before her mother died, the one who had taught her to ride a bike and helped with homework. She also remembered the man he became after, the one who drank until he couldn't stand and screamed at her for reminding him of her mother. Which man would she find if she agreed to see him? The next morning, Maya made a decision. She would meet with her father, but on her terms in a public place with Marcus there for support. She called Jennifer and arranged a meeting for the following week. She needed to focus on other things first, like preparing for the university entrance, exams, and finding a more permanent place to live. Robert and several other music faculty members organized a fundraiser concert to help Maya and other homeless youth in the city. They asked Maya to perform again, and this time she agreed without hesitation. The concert sold out within hours, with tickets going for premium prices. All proceeds would go toward creating a scholarship fund for disadvantaged music students. The night of the fundraiser, Maya wore the same black dress Rose had given her, but this time she felt different. She wasn't a homeless girl anymore, not really. She was a pianist, a student, a survivor who had fought her way back from the edge. When she walked onto the stage, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. People were here specifically to see her, to support her. Maya played the same 3 pieces from the showcase, but with even more confidence and maturity. Between pieces, she spoke to the audience about her experience, about the people who had helped her, and about the importance of seeing past someone's circumstances to recognize their humanity and potential. Her words were simple but powerful, and more than one person in the audience left determined to make a difference. After the concert, dozens of people wanted to meet Maya and shake her hand. Local business owners offered her jobs. Teachers offered mentorship. But the moment that mattered most came when a young girl, maybe 13 years old, approached shyly. "I want to play piano like you," she said quietly. "My mom says we can't afford lessons, but I want to try anyway." Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "Let me tell you a secret," she said with a smile. "The most important thing isn't having the fanciest piano or the best teacher. It's refusing to give up, even when things get hard. If you really want to play, you'll find a way." She wrote down Robert's number on a piece of paper. "Call this number and tell him I sent you. He'll help you get started." The day Maya agreed to meet her father arrived too quickly. She had been staying with Marcus and Maria for 2 weeks now, slowly adjusting to having a roof over her head and regular meals. The nightmares had started to fade, replaced by cautious optimism about her future. But the thought of seeing her father again brought back all the old fears and anger. Marcus drove her to the coffee shop where Jennifer had arranged the meeting. "I'll be right outside," he promised. "If you need me, just wave through the window and I'll come in." Maya nodded, grateful for his steady presence in her life. He and Maria had become like family, filling a void she hadn't realized still existed. Her father was already there when Maya walked in. He sat at a corner table, his hands wrapped around a coffee cup. He looked different from her memories. Thinner, older, with gray streaking through his hair, but his eyes were clear, no longer clouded by alcohol, and when he saw her, they filled with tears. Maya sat down across from him, her body rigid with tension. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, her father broke the silence. "You look so much like your mother," he said, his voice cracking. "When I saw you on the news playing piano like she used to, I couldn't breathe. It was like seeing her again." "Don't," Maya said sharply. "Don't talk about Mom. You don't have the right." The anger she had been suppressing for over a year came bubbling to the surface. "You left me. I was 15 years old and you just disappeared. Do you have any idea what I went through?" Her father's face crumpled. "I know," he whispered. "I know, and I'm sorry isn't enough. I was drowning in grief and guilt, and instead of being your father, I ran away like a coward. I told myself you were better off without me, that I was poison to everyone I loved. I was wrong." Maya felt tears building but refused to let them fall. She had cried enough. "You were wrong," she agreed coldly. "I needed you. I ended up in foster homes with people who didn't care about me. I slept on the streets. I went hungry. I was scared all the time. And you were where? Getting drunk somewhere, feeling sorry for yourself?" "In rehab," her father said quietly. "I hit rock bottom 6 months ago and finally admitted I needed help. I've been sober ever since. I found a job at a warehouse, nothing special, but it's honest work. I got a small apartment through a recovery program. I go to meetings every day." He pulled out his phone and showed her a sobriety app tracking his progress. 153 days sober. Maya looked at the screen but felt nothing. Numbers didn't erase the past. "Good for you," she said flatly. "But that doesn't change what happened. You can't just show up now and expect everything to be okay." "I don't," her father said earnestly. "I don't expect anything from you, Maya. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, that I love you and I always have, even when I was too sick and broken to show it. Your mother would be ashamed of what I did, how I failed you. I'm ashamed too." They sat in silence for several minutes. Maya watched people come and go, normal people with normal lives, and wondered what that must feel like. Her life had never been normal, even before everything fell apart. "I saw your performance," her father continued softly. "You were magnificent. Your mother would have been so proud. I am proud, though I know I have no right to that feeling. She taught me everything," Maya said, her voice softer now. "When things got really bad on the streets, I would remember her sitting beside me at the piano, guiding my hands. It was the only thing that kept me going." Her father nodded, more tears spilling down his cheeks. "She had a gift for teaching. She saw music as a language of the soul. She would have known exactly what to say to you right now. I don't have her wisdom or her grace. All I have is the truth, which is that I failed you when you needed me most, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." Maya felt something shifting inside her, a tiny crack in the wall of anger she had built. She wasn't ready to forgive, might never be ready, but she could see that her father was genuinely trying. He was broken just like she was, both of them damaged by loss and poor choices. "I'm going to university in the fall," she said, changing the subject. "They gave me a full scholarship." Her father's face lit up with genuine joy. "That's wonderful," he said. "That's everything your mother wanted for you. She always said you had the talent to go anywhere, do anything." He hesitated, then asked carefully, "Where are you living now? Are you safe?" Maya explained about Marcus and Maria, about the community that had rallied around her after her performance went viral. Her father listened intently, nodding along. When she finished, he reached across the table as if to take her hand, then stopped himself. "I'm glad you have people looking out for you," he said. "That's more than I gave you." "I don't know if I can have you in my life," Maya admitted. "Not right now. Maybe not ever. There's too much hurt, too much damage. I need to focus on healing and building my future." "I understand," her father said, though pain crossed his features. "But can I ask one thing? Can I call you sometimes just to know you're okay? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I just need to know you're alive and safe, that you're following your dreams." Maya considered this request carefully. It was such a small thing, letting him call occasionally, but it felt like a huge step. Finally, she nodded. Once a month, she said. You can call once a month. If you drink again, if you miss even one call, we're done forever. Understood? Understood, her father agreed immediately. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for even this much. I'll prove to you that I've changed, however long it takes. They talked for another hour, carefully navigating around the painful topics, sharing small details about their current lives. Her father told her about his job, his apartment, the other people in his recovery group. Maya told him about Robert and Rose, about the fundraiser concert, about her upcoming university entrance exams. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't entirely awful either. When Maya finally left the coffee shop, Marcus was waiting in his car as promised. How did it go? He asked gently, pulling back into traffic. I don't know, Maya answered honestly. It was hard. He's sorry, and I think he means it, but sorry doesn't fix everything. I told him he could call once a month. Is that crazy? No, Marcus said firmly. It's compassionate and brave just like you. You're giving him a chance to prove he's changed while protecting yourself. That takes wisdom beyond your years. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into preparing for university. She took online classes to complete her high school equivalency, studying late into the night at Marcus and Maria's kitchen table. Robert continued working with her on piano, helping her prepare an audition repertoire that would showcase her abilities to their fullest. Rose brought over books and practice materials, always with encouraging words and warm hugs. The fundraiser concert had raised enough money to establish the Maya Johnson Scholarship Fund for disadvantaged music students. The board organizing it asked Maya to help interview applicants. Sitting across from other young people who had faced hardship and still pursued their passion for music, Maya felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. One applicant particularly touched her heart. A 16-year-old boy named Daniel, who lived in his car with his mother after they lost their apartment. He played guitar and wrote his own songs, beautiful haunting melodies about struggle and hope. Maya saw herself in his eyes, that same desperate need for music to make sense of a senseless world. You're going to get the scholarship, Maya told him after his audition. I'm going to make sure of it. When the board met to discuss candidates, Maya advocated passionately for Daniel, sharing her own story and explaining why supporting one talented homeless youth could change not just their life but an entire community. The board agreed unanimously. The call from her father came exactly 1 month after their meeting as promised. He sounded nervous but excited. I got promoted at work, he said. It's just a shift supervisor, but it comes with better pay. And I'm celebrating 6 months sober next week. I wanted you to know. That's good, Maya said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Keep it up. The conversation was brief and awkward, but he had kept his promise, and that mattered. Baby steps, Maya reminded herself. Healing happened in baby steps. The summer before university passed in a blur of studying, practicing, and slowly learning to live like a normal person again. Marcus and Maria officially became Maya's foster parents, giving her legal stability and a real home for the first time in over a year. The paperwork was complicated, but Jennifer from social services helped navigate the system. Maya finally had an address, a family, and a future. The college students who had mocked her reached out through social media with apologies. Maya read their messages but didn't respond immediately. She needed time to process her feelings. Eventually, she agreed to meet with them, not because she wanted to, but because she believed in the power of forgiveness and growth. They met at a coffee shop, the same one where she had reconnected with her father. The girl who had filmed her, whose name was Ashley, could barely look Maya in the eye. I've thought about that day every single day since, she said quietly. I was cruel for no reason except that it made my friends laugh. I didn't see you as a real person, just as entertainment. That's inexcusable. You're right, Maya agreed. It is inexcusable. You humiliated me when I was at my lowest point. Do you know what it feels like to be mocked for being homeless? To have your suffering turned into someone's social media joke? She saw Ashley flinch but continued. I'm not going to say it's okay because it's not. But I hope you learned something from this experience. The others apologized too, each one looking genuinely remorseful. Maya didn't forgive them easily or completely, but she listened to their words and acknowledged their growth. I hope you'll think twice before judging someone based on their appearance or circumstances, she said finally. You never know what someone has been through or what they're capable of achieving. As August approached, Maya prepared to move into the university dorms. Maria helped her shop for supplies, turning it into a fun mother-daughter day that Maya had never thought she would experience again. They bought sheets and towels, notebooks and pens, a small coffee maker for her dorm room. Maya felt like a real college student, and it was both thrilling and terrifying. The night before move-in day, Marcus and Maria threw her a small going-away party. Robert came with his wife. Rose arrived with homemade cookies, and even Daniel, the scholarship recipient, showed up with his mother to thank Maya for changing their lives. As Maya looked around the room at all these people who had supported her journey, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "I want to say something," Maya announced, standing up. The room fell quiet. 6 months ago, I was sleeping under bridges and wondering if I would survive another day. I thought I had lost everything that mattered. I was wrong. What I lost were things and circumstances, but I never lost myself or my music. And then you all showed up and reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. She paused, emotion tightening her throat. "Rose, you gave me the first opportunity when you sent me to Marcus. Marcus and Maria, you gave me a home and a family when I had neither. Robert, you believed in my talent when I had stopped believing in myself. Each of you saved my life in different ways, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to pay that forward." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Rose hugged her tightly, whispering, "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you're becoming." Marcus squeezed her shoulder with fatherly pride. Robert simply nodded, his eyes shining with tears. The next morning, Maya stood in her new dorm room, looking around at the blank walls and empty desk. Her roommate hadn't arrived yet, giving her time to settle in alone. She unpacked her few belongings, including the broken keyboard that had been with her through everything. It didn't work anymore, might never work again, but Maya couldn't throw it away. It represented survival, resilience, and the journey that had brought her here. Her phone rang. It was her father, calling exactly on schedule. "First day of university," he said warmly. "How are you feeling?" They talked for 15 minutes about her classes, her professors, her nervousness about fitting in. He told her about his job, about the apartment he was slowly turning into a real home, about the 9 months of sobriety he was celebrating next week. "I'm proud of you, Maya," he said before hanging up, "not just for getting into university, but for how you've handled everything life threw at you. You're stronger than I ever was." Maya thanked him and ended the call feeling lighter. Their relationship was still fragile and uncertain, but it was growing, healing slowly like a broken bone. Her first piano lesson at the university was with a renowned professor named Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Robert's colleague who had heard about Maya's story. Dr. Chen listened to Maya play for 20 minutes without interruption, her face unreadable. When Maya finished, she was silent for a long moment. "You have raw talent," Dr. Chen finally said. "Perhaps more than anyone I've taught in 20 years. But you also have significant gaps in your technical foundation, from the time you spent away from proper instruction. We have a lot of work to do," she smiled warmly, "but I believe you're up for the challenge." Maya threw herself into her studies with the same determination that had kept her alive on the streets. She practiced 6 hours a day, attended every class, and earned the respect of her professors and fellow students. Some people recognized her from the viral videos, but most just knew her as the talented freshman who was always in the practice rooms. 3 months into her first semester, the State Philharmonic invited Maya to perform as a guest soloist. She would play a Rachmaninoff concerto with full orchestra, the kind of opportunity professional pianists spent years working toward. The concert would be broadcast on public television and streamed online. It was a dream come true. The night of the performance, Maya stood backstage in a beautiful gown donated by a local boutique owner who had followed her story. Marcus, Maria, and Rose sat in the front row. Robert was there with his entire family. Daniel came with his mother, both of them thriving now with stable housing and support. Even Maya's father had driven 3 hours to attend, sitting quietly in the back, afraid to intrude but desperate to witness his daughter's triumph. As Maya walked onto the stage and the orchestra rose in greeting, she felt a profound sense of completion. This was where she was meant to be, where her mother had always said she would end up. The homeless girl with the broken keyboard was gone, transformed into a pianist with purpose and potential. But she hadn't forgotten where she came from or the people who had helped her along the way. The performance was flawless. Maya and the orchestra moved as one, creating music that brought the audience to tears. When the final notes faded away, the applause was deafening. People stood and cheered, some crying, some simply stunned by what they had witnessed. Maya took her bows, acknowledging the conductor and orchestra, and then she found the faces in the audience that mattered most. She saw Marcus and Maria holding hands and crying with pride. She saw Rose dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. She saw Robert nodding with satisfaction, knowing he had helped nurture a truly special talent. And in the back she saw her father sobbing openly, finally witnessing his daughter fulfill the promise her mother had always seen in her. After the concert, reporters and music critics crowded around Maya, asking about her plans for the future, whether she would pursue a performance career or focus on teaching. Maya answered their questions gracefully, but inside she was thinking about something different. She was thinking about all the other homeless youth on the streets, all the talented kids who would never get the chances she had received. A week later, Maya announced the formation of a new nonprofit organization called Keys to Hope. The mission was to provide music education and instruments to homeless and disadvantaged youth, along with support services to help them get off the streets. The scholarship fund would expand, and Maya would use her growing fame to advocate for homeless youth and arts education. "Music saved my life," Maya told reporters at the press conference announcing the organization. "It gave me purpose when I had nothing else, and it connected me to people who saw past my circumstances to recognize my potential. Every kid deserves that chance. Every homeless youth deserves to be seen as more than their situation." The organization took off beyond Maya's wildest dreams. Donations poured in from around the country. Music stores offered to provide instruments at cost. Professional musicians volunteered to teach. Within 6 months, Keys to Hope was operating in 5 cities, helping hundreds of homeless youth discover their own talents and pathways off the streets. As Maya's first year of university drew to a close, she reflected on the incredible journey she had traveled, from the girl who played a broken keyboard on the street corners to a university student and advocate for homeless youth. The transformation seemed almost impossible, but Maya knew the truth. She was still the same person, still the girl who loved music more than anything, who refused to give up no matter how dark things became. The day of her final exams, Maya returned to the shopping district where she used to play for coins. She brought her broken keyboard and set it up in the same spot just for old time's sake. A crowd gathered quickly, recognizing her from the news. But Maya didn't play for them. She played for herself, for the girl she used to be, and for every person who was still fighting their way through darkness. When she finished, a young homeless girl approached shyly, maybe 13 or 14, with a guitar case slung over her shoulder. "Are you really Maya Johnson?" she asked quietly. Maya nodded. "I saw your video. It gave me hope that maybe things could get better for me too." Maya knelt down to the girl's level, seeing herself reflected in those hopeful, scared eyes. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Sarah," the girl replied. "Well, Sarah," Maya said, pulling out her phone, "let me tell you about a program I started. It's called Keys to Hope, and I think you'd be perfect for it." She took down Sarah's information and promised to connect her with resources that could help. As the girl walked away with a lighter step, Maya felt a deep sense of purpose settle over her. This was what her journey had been for, not just to save herself, but to light the way for others walking the same dark path. Her mother would have approved, Maya thought. She would have said that true artistry isn't just about playing beautiful music. It's about using that music to make the world a little bit better, a little bit kinder, a little bit more hopeful. Maya packed up her broken keyboard for the last time and headed back to campus. She had papers to write, practice sessions scheduled, and a conference call with the Keys to Hope board. Her life was full and meaningful, a far cry from the desperate existence she had known just 1 year ago. And every single day she remembered that nothing was impossible, that rock bottom wasn't the end of the story, but sometimes just the beginning. The girl who had been mocked for playing a broken keyboard on the street was now using her voice and platform to change lives, and she was just getting started.